5 more thieves were caught today is the headlines in all the major media outlets, referring to a case that's actually been on the news for the last 12 days, where a bunch of thieves were able to break into the Louvre museum in Paris, nothing less than that, and steal the French royal jewellery. What an embarrassment this is to the French people. What an embarrassment this is to the security of the Louvre Museum. And one of the questions that people have been asking over the last few days is, what did the thieves intend to do with this jewellery? Obviously, they can't sell it on the open market. And what's emerging now, and it's actually coming out through Israeli companies that have been hired by the French government to try and catch these thieves and resolve this case, is that the thieves were planning to do one of two things. Either sell some of the jewellery on the dark net, behind the scenes where nobody can see, or they were going to take some of the jewellery, remove it from its original tiaras and necklaces, and sell the pearls and the diamonds individually. And when you read this, it's so painful and so sad that French national jewellery that should be presented with pride in the open daylight should be relegated to the tunnels, to the dark net, behind the scenes. Or the jewellery that's part of a rich history, a heritage, royalty, should be divorced from its original setting and be sold individually as a piece of jewellery. What a shame. But the rabbis teach us that everything we hear or see should be a message. We should learn something from it. And I feel that we also as Jewish people have our rich heritage, our jewellery, our royal jewellery, which is the main 3 pillars of Am Yisrael, Torah Israel and Eretz Israel, the Jewish nation, the Jewish Torah and the Jewish land. And in these 3 things we see that also somehow some people compromise it and divorce it from its royalty. And what's even more fascinating is that these 3 things are alluded to and mentioned in this week's parasha, Parashat Lech Lecha. When it comes to Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, we read about the Brit, the covenant that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does that we should be a nation, a proud nation in this week's parasha. And yet you see Jewish people that they somehow go into the dark net. They cover their Magen David, they remove the kippah, they hide their Jewish signs. They're embarrassed for whatever reason. They take this royalty and they put it in the dark net behind the scenes. It's so sad and painful. When we read about Torah Israel, the Jewish Torah, which is such a rich and a holy heritage, with such beautiful guidance, with such amazing rules, once we divorce it from being God's Torah, from the royal king, then it becomes cheap. And you read about it in this week's parasha, the people of Sodom and Amorah. They also had rules, they had regulations, they had principles. But because they removed them from God's rules, they became corrupt. And we see the same thing today. Many other nations, people, they say, yeah, I have certain rules, but because they are divorced, torn away from the Torah individually as one piece of jewelry, it doesn't have the same value. It doesn't have the same worth. Only when we have the whole Torah as a whole and we adhere to its big picture, we realize it's God's jewelry, we realize that it's a crown of Hashem, then it has its value. We cannot cherry pick, we cannot remove one mitzvah and follow just that. That's like removing the diamonds from the jewelry and selling them individually. And then Eretz Israel, the Jewish land, also in this week's parasha, where Hashem tells Avraham Avinu, Ki lecha u'lezaracha natati et haaretz hazot. Our holding of the land, why we deserve the land is because God gave it to us. We must never divorce our connection to the land from its original source. We don't own the land of Israel because we got it in 1967, 48, we won a war, the United Nations. This is all irrelevant. Our connection to the land is much deeper, it's much more royal, the heritage is so much stronger. It comes all the way from Avraham Avinu being promised this land in this week's parasha. So let's remember the message that we see in the news. It's so sad when something like that, so royal, is being divorced and taken away from where it really should be with its pride. So please God, this jewelry will be returned and will go back to its original pride. But the same thing also for us. Torah Israel, Eretz Israel and Am Yisrael should all return to its original source, to its pride, its connection, its heritage, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the bond that the first Jew, Avraham Avinu, does with Hashem. Wishing you Shabbat Shalom.